Some of us were almost afraid that Boris Johnson would suddenly become a normal head of government. But this weekend, Boris Johnson proved once again that he's not a normal head of government. With his statements at the Tory convention in Blackpool, he has once again proved how unsuitable he is for the job. It's been thought after imposing sanctions on Russian oligarchs, what's really odd for Tory party officials, by the way, is that Johnson is suddenly trying to be a normal head of government, but the impression seems almost unbearable to himself, as it seems. We're used to Boris Johnson wanting to provoke, but by comparing the Ukrainian struggle for freedom against the Russian invasion with the British during the Brexit dispute, he has hit an all-time low in his statements. Even in his own party, criticism hails. British MP Tobias Ellwood of Johnson's Conservative Party tweeted, for example, comparing the Ukrainian people's fight against Putin's tyranny to the British people voting for Brexit damages the political leadership we are beginning to demonstrate. And even the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rishi Sunak, has distanced himself from Johnson's settlement. If you consider that Sunak is usually extremely careful with such things, this is an extraordinary process. And of course, Boris Johnson also sparked outrage abroad with his comparison, especially with his special Brexit friends Donald Tusk and Guy Verhofstadt. Donald Tusk wrote on Twitter, "Boris, your words offend the Ukrainians, the British and the common sense." And Tusk wrote so on Twitter, and Brexiteers' particular favorite Guy Verhofstadt dismissed Johnson's comparison as crazy. Ukrainians want more freedom and join the EU. And with that, Verhofstadt says exactly the right thing. Ukrainians want the freedom to choose which institutions and alliances to join, and at the top of their list is the EU. So much for the comparison between Brexit and the war in Ukraine, which is a complete disgrace anyway. I don't think there's really any need to comment further on Johnson's nonsense. But what does that say about a character of a man leading a great Western nation? A man who at least has access to nuclear weapons. In recent weeks, many have said that he shouldn't be removed as a prime minister in the middle of a crisis like this. And I'm always very conflicted when it comes to Boris Johnson's dismissal. On the one hand, the man is an absolute disaster as head of government. What he did to his own country, even if many Brexiteers still don't want to believe that, to this day, and also didn't want to believe it during the pandemic, despite the many deaths of so many people under Boris Johnson's leadership. And on the other hand, Boris Johnson is the best thing the Scottish independence movement and also the reunification movement in Northern Ireland can have. As macabre as it sounds, I always struggle with myself as to whether it wouldn't be better if Boris Johnson stayed in office for quite a while. Whether that can be so after the number of scandals that keep popping up is questionable. He has passed many scandals onto his subordinates, such as the Partygate affair, but such statements as he has made now, and how they drive everyone with a little common sense upset, well, he cannot pass that on to any subordinate. And a lot of my haters always say I hate Britain, but the exact opposite is the case. I've been talking about these issues for years because I'm related to the UK myself, have friends in the UK, and have lived there myself. And it's absolutely terrifying to see where this country is going. And for all the reasonable citizens of Britain, I can only hope that the Johnson affair, as I like to call it now, does not continue indefinitely. The English, the Scots, the Welsh and the Northern Irish deserve to be governed by a government that works for them, not against them. And then I would like to make a few comments about the troll comments under my videos and about the actions of the German government. First of all, before the war started, I was already endlessly criticizing my own government for not wanting to supply arms to Ukraine at the time. Luckily, you can see that in my videos from that time. And for those who still haven't figured out that I don't have German news on my UK channel or about other European countries, they should finally figure out that this isn't my only channel. When I talk about global politics, I have my global channel for that. When I talk about European politics, I have my European channel for that. And when I talk about German politics, well, that's why I have my Germany channel. But I know that in many cases, thinking before talking or writing is a big problem. But because of the comments, I would now like to say something about the German government, even if it doesn't usually belongs on this channel. The German government did not cover itself in glory in the run-up to the Ukrainian war. Despite the obvious Russian troop deployment, they did not deliver any weapons to the Ukraine, which I thought was a mistake even then, and I said so regularly. But fortunately, well, you have to call it a bit of a blessing in disguise here, the Social Democrat-led government in Germany has finally changed its mind. Weapons have been delivered to the Ukrainians. As many arms were delivered to the Ukraine as Germany could deliver. Due to the blockade of the Social Democrats in recent decades, Germany no longer has much to offer that they could give them. And that's why 100 billion euros are now being invested in the Bundeswehr, and after the long blockade, NATO's 2% target is finally being introduced. That part is on the right track. And yes, Germany is too dependent on Russian gas, but you can't change that overnight. Some people in the comments, those trolls, always make life too easy for themselves. Of course, I would also be in favor of immediately stopping all deliveries from Russia and not paying a cent more. But it isn't that easy to replace something like that quickly. And the government, even if you don't notice that in Britain too often recently, is there for the good of its own people. And you can't just turn off the gas and let your own population suffer massively. The challenges posed by the sanctions, the war and the economic development caused by the pandemic are a huge burden for Germans. And for the same reason that the British will not stop importing Russian oil today, but only at the end of the year, those responsible in German government must have new sources of supply and also new supply chains to replace Russian gas. In the long run, this dependency will certainly be reduced further or hopefully even ended. But something like that doesn't happen overnight. Of course, you can make it easy for yourself and always just make some populist demands in your country or just post some headlines. But you can only do that if you're either stupid or totally irresponsible. Well, I won't do that. And I'll see you in my next video. Bis gleich.